Welcome back, everybody. This Week in America. Thank you for joining us on the program. Join us at the new website, thisweekinamerica.us. As mentioned, our guest on the program today is Robert Andrew Powell, author of the new book, Running Away, a Memoir. It's the story of failure, acceptance, and the challenge of simply staying in the race. Robert, welcome to the program. Great to have you with us today.
Hey, nice to be here. Thank you.
It is an excellent new book, and when I talk about Running Away, a Memoir, if people think, okay, this is a running book, it's far more than a running book, isn't it? I mean, we can really make a lot of analogies, comparisons to life as you're reading the book.
Well, it's a little too simple to say that running's a metaphor for life, but running is a metaphor for life. And I consider running here just to be the context. I'm not a runner. I don't love running. I ran throughout this book, and this is steeped in the running culture of the United States and in Boulder, Colorado specifically. But that's more of the setting, more the way like a movie might be set in Hawaii. It's really more about things that are more universal than running itself.
You know, you say in the book, running is one long temptation to stop. And boy, for people like myself that I've tried and not real crazy about, especially running, not jogging, but actually running, that pretty well sums it up. Yeah, you're not doing this thing that running is going to change your life. I mean, you're saying you hate it and it's painful.
Well, I've never liked to run. I got into this project because my dad was a late blooming champion runner, but I've never liked it. And yeah, exactly like you said, the whole time I'm running, I'm thinking about stopping. And that's the way it gets into the metaphor area, in that there's so many things in life that you might want to quit, relationships or projects or even your enthusiasms for things that you have to do. And yet, you know, part of what I learned in this whole project is that there's a reward for sticking with it.
Let's talk about where you were in your life when you decided, okay, I'm going to do this. And you used your dad at age 39, who literally turned his life around by preparing, qualifying for, and running in the Boston Marathon. And you're very open in the book in talking about the infidelity, the divorce, the procrastinations that you had in life at that time. How low were you? And in fact, before you left Miami and went to Boulder, you were talking about living in a chicken coop. A converted chicken coop.
Well, no, that's what I upgraded to in Boulder. What had happened is, my dad, when he was 39, he was overweight. He smoked 3 packs of cigarettes a day, and there was a running craze starting to take over the United States. Frank Shorter had won a gold medal in the marathon for the U.S. at the Olympics, and the Boston Marathon was starting to take off, and my dad got caught up in the running craze, and he just started jogging just for exercise for the first time in his life. And within a year, he'd qualified for and run the Boston Marathon in under 3 hours, which is kind of superhuman, and kind of the defining trait of who my dad is. And as I got closer to 40, and I couldn't help but compare my life to his, in that he also had a family of, he had 4 kids and a house and a golf course, and his career was really thriving. And I was divorced. My career was stagnant. And I felt a bit adrift. And I decided that I was going to see if I could maybe run a marathon, one of those 5-hour jogs when I was 40. And it just grew in my mind. And it became important to me to try to do what my dad had done, which is get to Boston on my first marathon. And to do that, it turned out I felt I needed to do something drastic, and I ended up just giving away almost everything I owned and moving cold to Boulder, Colorado.
You're listening to This Week in America. Our website is thisweekinamerica.us. Our guest on the program is Robert Andrew Powell, author of the new book, Running Away, a Memoir. It's available at Amazon all across the country. Information at our website, thisweekinamerica.us. And I want to talk about the accomplishment your dad had. I mean, he's 39 years old, totally turned his life around, set this goal, was able to attain it. The Boston Globe runs this multi-page, multi-pictured story. You're, 8 years old, and you're
Right.
marveling at what your dad was able to accomplish and the notoriety he was able to gain.
Well, it was, when you're an 8-year-old boy, your father can look superhuman to you anyway. And then to see that all the attention he got for making it to Boston in his first try, and for doing really well, the Boston Globe magazine ran this huge feature on him. And people around the town where we were living in New Hampshire at the time, just everyone sort of recognized that this was incredible. And it seemed heroic to me. And like I said, when I started getting close to the age he was when he pulled this off, I really felt like I didn't measure up. It's kind of a hard thing to measure up to. And it became important for me to try to replicate what he had done for my own reasons.
Yeah, you talk about it as you're in Miami and things are not going all that well and you're trying to put all the pieces together. What's sort of the last straw that made you decide, I've got to get out of here and pursue that, is what you're online and you're sort of checking to see what the ex-wife is doing. And you come across an estate sale, your estate sale, and your wife says, I'm selling all because I'm off to Europe. And that sort of like was the tipping point that, okay, I need to get out of Miami and I need to do something else.
Well, that's exactly what it was. I had started running on the new year, like a marathon training program, and it didn't take me long to start skipping workouts, and I started getting lazy in my training, and it didn't look like it was going to happen. I probably would have shelved it, and it just, pretend I never made the goal. And then I'm trying to work one night, and I'm procrastinating like usual. And at the end of my work day, I'm doing this cyber stalking that I think a lot of us do now. And, I looked up old girlfriends, and then I looked up my ex-wife, who had lived in Miami. And she had moved to Europe. Yeah, like everything in our house that I gave her in the divorce was for sale. And I was like, an opportunity to buy back my blender. But what it really was a kick in the pants that everyone had moved on with their lives. And I was still kind of in a tailspin from my divorce, and it was like, I have nothing to lose and I need to do something drastic, and that's why I just immediately got rid of everything and went to Boulder.
Well, talk about the significance of Boulder. For non-runners, they may not understand. You're talking basically the mecca of running in the United States.
Maybe in the entire world.
Yeah.
When I was there, we would see Olympians from Africa and Japan, Australia. I did a fun run, and the winner was an Australian Olympian. Boulder, it's a mile above sea level. It has sunny, mild weather almost year-round. And that's where Frank Shorter, the Olympic champion, lives and first trained for his gold medal win, which started this whole culture to the city. And so now everyone runs there, everyone bikes and swims and skis. And as a friend was saying, it's the kind of city that can ruin your day, because you'll be riding the bus home from work and you'll see people jogging and you'll just feel guilty, even if you worked out in the morning. Like, it's the running. They take running very seriously there, and it's hard not to get caught up in the culture.
Well, it's interesting as you talk about the culture there. Sometimes what's sort of an elitist attitude among some of the people there, to say the least.
But it's an upscale city. It's the best of what's possible in the United States, and yet it's just my personality, I guess. But I can find that a bit oppressive. It's rich, intelligent people living in a bit of a bubble, and I can appreciate the bubble, but I wouldn't want to stay there full time.
You talk in the book Running Away, a memoir. Our guest on the program is Robert Andrew Powell. That's his new book, Running Away. It's available all across the country. Information at Amazon and, of course, our website, thisweekinamerica.us. You describe the scene as you're loading your car with over 100,000 miles and you're taking off from Miami after realizing, I've got to get out of this town. And you look in the rearview mirror and you see the skyscrapers as you're leaving Miami. And you said at that point, you were even beginning to feel better there. Now, that didn't last all that long, but as you were leaving, what was that moment of transformation that at least I'm doing something with my life different
now? That's
now?
exactly what it is. I mean, doing something.
Yeah.
I've learned, it's a core concept, and maybe everyone else already knew this, but you have to have something that engages you. And just having something that you're engaged in, some project or some passion, gives order and purpose to your life. Like, all I was doing was moving to Boulder, and I was going to train, but I felt like I was doing something constructive by just quitting my whole life in Miami. And so that road trip out there alone felt constructive. I'm doing something. And that's part of what I learned from the whole project. Getting up and training every day, which I didn't like, was still it was constructive. I was engaged, not only in my project, but in life itself.
The book is called Running Away, a memoir. Robert Andrew Powell, our guest on This Week in America, website thisweekinamerica.us. And your goal at this point, you'd like to do what your dad did, which is it takes some time, get into shape, train, run, qualify, and then run in the Boston Marathon. So this was, again, trying to live up to what your dad was able to do.
Yeah, the goal was pretty simple. Like it was just qualify for the Boston Marathon. You know, running the Boston Marathon was to be just a bonus, like a gift. But qualifying, because that's one of the beautiful things about the Boston Marathon. It's like the common man's Olympic Games, in that a normal person can get into Boston, but you have to qualify. They have a very fast time that you need to run. I needed to run at least a 3:15 marathon to get there, and it was a serious goal. Like, there was no way I could do it without training very seriously. And but again, it's something that my dad pulled off without a coach, without any culture. He just ran after working a full day. And so, I felt it was possible.
The book is fascinating when we're rapidly running out of time. Let's talk about that relationship with your dad. It's going by quickly, and I highly recommend getting a copy of the book, Running Away. At what point did you realize, I'm Robert, I'm not my dad? And you're talking about your dad and the young women that you were dating at the time ago. Your dad still got it. I mean, this was a pretty impressive guy.
Well, he still is. Yeah, he just ran a half marathon a month ago. He's always been a very structured guy, very rigid guy. He gets a lot done with his life, but he wakes up at the same time, he goes to bed at the same time, he works. And I've never been that kind of structured person. I'm more like a house cat, probably. And one of the things I tried to do when I went out there is I got a coach who espoused the same sort of structured life, and I tried to live as much as I could like my dad. And part of what I got out of it was just, I am just a different dude, He is who he is. He's a type A person, and I'm like a type L or G or something, middle of the alphabet. And I'm more accepting of who I am now. Before, I always felt like it's just because I didn't measure up to him, and I still don't measure up to him, but I also recognize that I'm a different guy.
There are some great scenes in the book, and one towards the end of the book at Myrtle Beach. Don't want to give it all away, but do you think your dad reached the point where I'm who I am and Robert's who he is, and I'm proud of it? One of the reasons I wanted to write this book is, when I was done with the whole experience and I looked at my notes, I keep a journal. I basically take notes of everything. And what had happened in the book, and it happened organically, is clearly going to be one of the top 5 best moments of my entire life, no matter how good everything comes from here on in. And it's just this moment that happened that came out of all of this, and it was not something I expected. And it's something, I think every son wants to hear from their father, and it was beautiful. I mean, it was $1 million moment for me, and what I'm trying to do with this book is not only record the moment, but also try to explain why it's so beautiful. The book is 26.2 chapters. I love that you ended up with the marathon there. Yes. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I love that. So you sit down to read it. It's okay. If I do a chapter a day, it's going to take me 26.2 days before I have a chance to finish the book. When you look back on all of this, what kind of difference do you think it made in your life? And you talk a lot in the book about, I stick to things better now than I did before, perseverance, that type of thing. I mean, this really was life-altering for you, wasn't it?
Well, it was. I always try to caution that, this isn't a self-help book, and it's not a neat and tidy ending in that suddenly all my problems disappeared. I have tons of problems, just like every human being does. Everyone walking down the street has some burden of some kind, and I still do. But it really helped me break through. I was sort of stuck, and I was in a free fall, and this helped me to recalibrate and retune my life. And I'm very grateful that I had the opportunity to do it. I had the opportunity to do it only because everything was going wrong. but by picking out something and engaging in something and trying, I was able to get back on track, at least outwardly. Yeah, I feel much more comfortable with who I am.
Minute or so left in the program. We mentioned before Frank Shorter, and it's interesting your assessment of him. Here's someone who appears to this very day to have problems dealing with finishing second in the Olympics in Montreal.
Yeah, it's one of the most amazing things. Here's a guy who has a gold medal in the marathon, and he got a silver in the subsequent marathon in 1976, and he lost out to a East German who almost certainly was a drug cheat. And Frank Shorter can't let this go. Like, he's obsessed with with getting his second gold medal, which seems somewhat ridiculous to me, and yet the pain that he's in and the way that this is sort of consuming his life is real, and it's kind of poignant. And what's universal about that is we all have our issues that we could be sunk by, and he became sort of a negative example, to use a phrase that he used.
Well, and issues that other people may not even realize exist. You mentioned Frank Shorter, and even if you're not a runner, you know who Frank Shorter is, and you think of him as a champion, a gold medal winner, and you don't think of him as finishing second, yet this has haunted his life.
Yeah, that's what he thinks of, and it's interesting because, like I said, we all have something that can sink us, and I felt that my divorce was sinking me, but that's completely my choice to let it sink me, maybe not a conscious choice. And it's a choice that Frank Shorter is making as well with his challenges. And he used the phrase negative example, that he liked to learn from negative example. And I think Frank Shorter becomes a negative example of how not to deal with your demon.
The book is called Running Away, a Memoir. And you said you're a note taker. You write notes, everything. Yeah. You think this is going to be like a weekend? I'll go back, put these together, maybe try to publish it, get a book out there. 6 years later.
I thought it would be like a fun weekend craft project. I'll just make a memoir out of this. And it took me 5 years to get it into print, which...
How good did you feel when it was over with? Not that you accomplished writing the book as you did accomplish in going out running, but did you feel better about things when you went back, you looked at them and maybe put them in perspective you hadn't before?
It's really nice for me on a personal level to have this record of what was a pivotal moment in my life to this point, and was also a beautiful moment in my life. And I'm grateful that, as a professional, I saw the project through, and I'm also just exceptionally grateful to have a record of it that I can refer to, because it helps me to read the story as well.
It's a fascinating book. It's called Running Away, a Memoir. Our guest in the program has been Robert Andrew Powell. The book is available Amazon all across the country. Of course, information at our website, thisweekinamerica.us. Robert, I love the book. Thank you so much for taking time to talk about it. We appreciate it.
Well, I appreciate it. Thank you very much.
Information available at our website, thisweekinamerica.us. We'll be right back.